have recently been asked if there are other kinds of alternative methods to coming into contact with our inner being. So I want to take some time to shed a little light on the subject. Quite some time ago, I had read an article in one of the reputable magazines of India about a woman who achieved divine light by virtue of her one persistent habit. Back when she was a young girl, her mother had suggested it to her that every night before falling asleep, in her mind she was to thoroughly go over the details of her day and reflect upon them with sincerity. She thought about it and ended up promising her mother that she would make this a regular daily practice, and started that very night. During these periods of introspection, any time she felt she had wronged a friend, lied to someone, or partook in any out-of-tune behavior, the next day she would approach those affected by her behavior and ask for their forgiveness and promise not to repeat that same mistake again. Day after day, she followed this regimen earnestly. Other than this one special habit, she led an average life. She was not a particularly spiritual person and refrained from regular meditation or devotional works. However, there were times in her life when she was tried by higher forces of the nature to determine if she was truly following her pact with her inner self. She wrote of an instance involving her work when she was asked to compromise her integrity. An influential manager of hers approached her and said that if she was willing to lie just a bit, she would be able to obtain a much better position in the office that would also come with a significant increase in pay. With the promise of this new promotion, at first she agreed to it. But that night, at the time of her introspection, she could not allow herself to yield to the temptation of a better salary in exchange for such falsehood. The next day, she told the manager that she was not willing to lie to gain the position. At this, the manager became very frustrated with her, and not only did she lose the new position, but was fired and lost her other job as well. She seemed very down on her luck. But folks, in just a few weeks' time, she had a stupendous experience that transformed her life completely. One night, as she lay in bed reflecting, she saw herself totally filled with divine light inside and out. She was filled with such a feeling of bliss that she never could have imagined possible. This experience became a launching point for her to fly into the infinity and change her life forever. So, what do you think took place here? For years, she practiced not giving into the temptation of listening to her vital or mental ego. Instead, she stayed true to herself and lived genuinely, always following in her truth. She learned to listen to the small voice from within we all are blessed with. For most of us pay no attention to it, and by doing so, we fail to listen to our real self, known as our psychic being. This woman followed no religious instructions, no meditation, no hard or fast rules of any path. All she followed was just plain old dictum of acting out of the truth of her inner self. As a matter of fact, most of us oftentimes know what the right thing to follow in our lives is. But because we decide to make decisions out of ego, or desires, or ambitions, or other such colorful distractions, we end up creating many obstacles for ourselves. By not following the wish of our divine self within us, we make its work of transformation of our psyche far more difficult. All she did was to remove the hurdles from its path And lo and behold, she became identified with the light within. It seems to be a new fad among some to practice these I am statements. If one were to just repeat sincerely, I am my own hurdle, keeping in mind the obstruction one's mind and vital pose to the psychic, and taking on a willingness to let the psychic transform us, the results achieved can be stupendous after some period of time. This practice has the potential of carrying one to a plane of truth, beauty, and certitude of knowing what is right without the need of deducing it with the help of the mind. In such a state, one's psychic knows what is right for the being, though it may not know how it knows, as it functions by its divine instinct. You see, under normal circumstances, the mental being observes and puts all things into different compartments of our mind as it experiences the happenings of life. As a result, we act according to how the mind has organized its experiences within us. Our externalized mental being has capacity for a limited understanding of things unless it becomes transformed by the psychic. The psychic, however, acts spontaneously by dint of the divine knowing within it. It always acts in consonance of that knowing. Hence, to make a mistake is not possible for it. It remains calm and generous under any circumstance and is progressive by nature. Similarly, the vital being imparts intensity to all human desires, hopes, wants, or accomplishments. Within us, this being stretches from the navel to the lower region of the heart, just below where the psychic being resides. There are two parts to the vital being, the lower vital and the higher vital. The lower that dwells close to the navel and abdomen and up to the lower region of heart oversees our more basic needs, including hunger, sleep, cravings, sex, ego, etc. The other part, which reigns up to the higher part of the heart region, belongs to the higher vital and does have some ideals. Integrity of a sort, good-heartedness, a certain level of unselfishness, the desire to help others. In other words, some of the human qualities we all admire. The higher vital may appear at times to imitate the psychic, but there is a distinct difference between the two. For example, when one's love gets filtered to the vital part of the being, howsoever intense it may be, if things do not go according to one's expectations or wishes, one runs the risk of their love being transformed into hatred, feelings of vengeance, or in some cases, even cruelty. In psychic love, there is no such danger. Even in the same circumstances, such experiences have no hold over psychic emotions to create any polar opposites within us. Psychic emotions, while calmly passionate in their own right, are never violent or as overwhelming as the passions of the vital. They constantly remain pure and sweet, full of compassion, and are always self-giving. Perhaps that is why it is almost impossible to find the psychic love between two humans, a topic we will go into in greater detail later on. One of the grandest traits of the psychic is that it can always be called upon when one is seeking its guidance in a time of need. After my guru's departure from this world, it affected me deeply, and the life didn't remain the same. Nothing seemed to interest me anymore. As I looked within, I felt lost, and the only thing that still had some lure of desire for me was to go to the Himalayas and just stay there indefinitely. Practically speaking, pursuing this thought looked almost impossible. I had no money to travel, no means of taking care of my needs when getting there, and had lived a sheltered life for most of my years on this earth, so didn't know how I would manage living alone in the mountains. Then how was I to make it happen? As I walked back and forth in my apartment, I concentrated on my psyche, seeking its help and guidance, and suddenly it happened. After an hour or two of this aspiration, I began to feel a breeze. The doors and windows were closed tight, and there was no other source of wind that could have entered into that small apartment. Again the draft came. This time it had some exotic fragrance to it. Amazed at what was taking place, I continued to pace up and down. Then out of the blue, I had been transported to a beautiful space, while a breeze laden with the scent of fragrant flowers was all around me. Within me, I felt an indescribable quietude that was reigning over my entire being. It couldn't have lasted more than a minute or so before I found myself back in my place. The calm was still within me, but my perception had gone through a change. The small and drab apartment of just a few minutes ago now appeared to me as if it had acquired some ethereal beauty. My surroundings seemed so beautiful, so new, as if I was truly seeing it for the first time. I stood very still, looking at it, trying to recall what just had taken place. I clearly felt that I was transported to some area of the Himalayas, and miraculously those few moments fulfilled my desire to be among those majestic mountains. Ever since, I have not had any desire to run away to those holy mountains. One never knows how psychic may intervene and put you back on the track meant for you.